Hello everyone, here we are at your beloved campus. I'm looking over towards Burton Street, and I'm not in a park right now like I was for the previous lab, but I'm in part of your campus that is really managed like a park. Right, look at this beautiful lawn, right? And we're here to talk about ecosystem ecology. And in ecosystem ecology, we're thinking not only about community level interactions among the various living creatures, but also some of the cycling that happens with non-human elements, non-living elements of the ecosystem. In a lawn area like this, what has happened is that the original vegetation here has been removed, and we have installed Kentucky bluegrass, basically one species. If other species crop up, we get a little upset about that. This is basically a monoculture. Remember what I had mentioned last time, and that is diversity begets diversity. You can't have lots of diversity of insects or birds or animals if you don't have a lot of diversity of plants. So a habitat like this is not going to support a whole lot of diversity. Okay, I see a bumblebee over there. He's cruising around. He's not stopping at all on any of the grasses. There's nothing here for him. It's like he's moving through a desert. He's looking for some flowers. All right. Furthermore, I don't know if you can see that worker in the distance. I don't want to pick on him, but he's got a backpack sprayer and he's spraying weeds. All right. So he's diminishing diversity, if you will, because we have decided as a society that we like this. This is nice. This is beautiful. Look at how nice this is. It's just lovely. What I want to point out is that the creation doesn't want this. Creation wants to be much more diverse, like this area back here. Right? That's what it's working towards. And in order to keep a ecosystem like this, looking the way it does, we have to work really hard, right? We have to spray chemicals. We have to mow the grass. We have to irrigate. We have to do all these various things because we want it to look like something that creation doesn't want to look like. There is nowhere that I know on the face of the earth that a natural habitat looks anything like this. Okay? Creation wants to be diverse. Here in this part of West Michigan, the creation wants to be a forest because that's what the natural vegetation was. It really wants to be a forest. And so, if this was left alone and chemicals were not used and mowers were not mowing and we didn't blow the leaves off, it would revert back to a forest. But we've decided we don't like that, right? On a college campus, we want it to look more like this. And it's very interesting to think, why is it that this is what we have decided is beautiful and acceptable? That gets into the whole realm of aesthetics, which is more of a philosophical question. But what I want you to see is that this is a very simple ecosystem. And we work hard to keep it simple because nature wants to be diverse. If we were to work with nature more, we wouldn't end up with a ecosystem like this. Well, let's just quick visit these cycles. What's happening with nitrogen here in this habitat? Well, what about the nitrogen fixing plants? There aren't any, right? We are getting some lightning, right? So lightning would transform into ammonia and nitrate, and the rain that comes from a lightning storm has higher levels of nitrogen in it, so that it's getting some nitrogen that way. There may be some free-living soil bacteria underneath this grass that are doing nitrogen fixation. But boy, you know, with all the mowers and the spraying, we probably have a vastly diminished microbial community in the soil. And so there's probably very little nitrogen fixation happening in the soil. Certainly don't have the plants here to do that. So what do? while we put nitrogen fertilizer on, right? Because nature's not making nitrogen here, not enough, so we need to add it. So we buy bags and bags of fertilizer that's produced by the Haber-Bosch process, which has a huge carbon footprint, and we put nitrogen here onto this soil so that the plants will grow. All right, that's nitrogen. This is not very sloped, but when you apply nitrogen fertilizer and it's on a slope and you get runoff, then that nitrogen gets into waterways and causes all those kinds of problems I talked about with eutrophication. All right, what about water? Certainly it rains here, and so that's nice. But Kentucky bluegrass is a very thirsty species. It needs to live in moist habitats. So it doesn't rain enough for Kentucky bluegrass. That's why we bring in additional water with irrigation, fertilizer, or irrigation sprinklers and things like that. So here it's all underground sprinkling, run on pumps that use electricity so that we can maintain this monoculture. What about carbon? Well, you know, these plants, these Kentucky bluegrass plants, as they grow, they are taking in carbon dioxide from the air. When they do their photosynthesis, they're fixing carbon. So that's great. Thank you very much, Kentucky bluegrass. Keep it up. However, to maintain this habitat, right? I already talked about the fertilizers, but the mowers, there's a mower across the street over there. The mowers and the leaf blowers, the weed whips, all of these power equipment tools are giving off carbon. And so the carbon budget for a lawn comes out on the negative side. A lawn emits more carbon than it sequesters. You know, we could change that a little bit. There are tools that don't run off of gasoline, right? So we could have push mowers. Wouldn't that be interesting to see our groundspeople walking behind push mowers? And there's like edging things. I got one for my house, you know, that doesn't have a motor. You just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You get really strong because it's a lot of work. You could rake leaves off of this instead of blowing them. But, you know, the sheer scale of lawn areas like this make that kind of prohibitively difficult. Nobody's ever going to mow the president's lawn with a push mower. And because of that, because we're using all power equipment, our carbon footprint goes up. All right. So we're coming out on the backside, the downside of the carbon budget, of the water budget, and of the nitrogen budget. All right. And it would lead one to question, it seems to me, if we want to move in the direction of sustainability as a society, why are we holding on to this lawn aesthetic the way we do? Right? If we as a campus, here I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit, want to become a carbon neutral campus, what's going on here? You might think, well, what alternatives are there? Let me bring you over here a sec. About 10 years ago, we took on a big project. And the big project was to convert 3 areas of lawn on campus into woods. What I'm showing you here used to be lawn. This is along Burton Street. About half of the lawn area was converted into a forest. As I'm looking out here, I see a squirrel, I see a bird, I see some mayaples coming up, wildflowers. I see a lot of leaves on the ground. By the way, I love the name given to these solar panels on trees. People call them leaves. I'd like to think that they were smart. They knew what they were doing when they assigned that word for a leaf, because leaves ought to be left. All right? We do not need to fertilize here in this woods because the leaves are being left. We're not blowing them out of this woods. We're not raking them up. We leave the leaves, and they are being broken down by bacteria, by fungi. And they are being converted back into usable elements. As I'm walking through here, it's hard to picture on this small screen, but this was lawn, all right? This was all lawn here. 10 years ago, we converted it into this forest. And you know what? We planted some trees, quite a few trees. We planted some shrubs. We threw down a bunch of seed from native plants. And what is so cool is that a lot of stuff came up that we never planted. All right? This is an area where we just let creation do what creation wants to do, and it came in with all kinds of other trees, wildflowers, and things that we never put in here. So this is a forest that's reverting back to what this landscape wants to be, to what this landscape was before Europeans showed up and started clearing the land. What's going on here with those cycles? Nitrogen. There's some nitrogen fixing plants in here. In fact, we specifically put them in. But the other thing is we don't have mowers running over this. We're not compacting the soil. There's all kinds of dead plant material here that can be broken down, so we have a healthy microbial population. Many of those are nitrogen fixing bacteria. And so nitrogen is being added to the soil here. We don't need to add nitrogen. We also do get the benefit of lightning and thunder showers, rain from thunder showers. So the nitrogen cycle has been rejuvenated. What about carbon? Oh my goodness, this is a carbon sponge. All these trees. And by the way, I say it again, we did not plant all these trees, right? We gave it a jump start and brought some trees in. But oh my word, it's just amazing to me, once we let nature be natural, how many trees just showed up on their own. The squirrels helped us out by planting stuff. Birds came and pooped, brought seeds over. Seeds fell in from other trees that we had planted and that were nearby. And the forest started to emerge. So these plants are all taking in carbon. The decomposition that happens is breaking down biomass and turning it into carbon-based molecules that get incorporated into the soil. So we're getting a really good organic soil here, which is full of carbon. So the carbon budget here is a sponge. We are sequestering way more carbon in this area than what we're giving off. Certainly there's still some carbon that's being given off because plants do respiration, right? But the balance is on the positive side. We're taking in more carbon than what is being given off. What about water? No irrigation in here. In fact, we had to dismantle a whole bunch of irrigation pipes that were here that were watering the lawn before this forest was put in. All right. No irrigation. Not every plant we put in here survived. Some of them probably got dried out. But there's been selection. And what has survived survives simply on precipitation that happens. And now we get evaporation, we get transpiration, and the water's getting pumped back into the air. Right. So what you're looking at here, you're looking at a sustainable landscape. And this is a sustainable landscape that will support all kinds of biodiversity. So to do a community food web in this little patch compared to that area in lawn where I started, this would be so much more complex, right? My question to you, and has been to many people that get tired of me talking about this, is if we are a Christian college that takes creation care seriously, why are there not more areas like this on our campus? Right? Why do we still have so many areas of lawn? I know lawns are great for laying out, for doing the Spring Arts Festival, for playing soccer and frisbee. Lawns have their place. But we have plenty of areas of lawn on our campus that hardly ever get used. They're simply there for looks. Because for some reason our society has decided that's what's beautiful. And of course we want a beautiful campus because we want to have students come. We want people to think favorably about us. But an aesthetic like the lawn, which is so unsustainable long term and so costly in terms of the creation, really needs to be reconsidered. All right, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. By the way, if you haven't noticed, today is a much, much nicer day than it was the last time I was making these videos. All right, I'm gonna stop this one now. And this is the end of the lawn video.